Okay, so you want to own an adult retail store. Tuesday night, just off an interstate exit. A woman walks into what looks like a high-end skincare boutique. Frosted glass cases, soft music, staff in minimalist black. She picks a sleek silicone device off an illuminated shelf, taps her card, walks out. 60 seconds, $79. That device cost about $12 to land on that shelf. That is over an 80% margin. There are about 3,000 of these stores across the United States. As of 2026, the sexual wellness market does roughly $14 billion a year. It grows at a steady 5% annually. Here is where most people stop thinking. Your real problem in this business is not the product. It is not beating the competition on price. Your real problem is finding a piece of legal land that allows you to exist. It is finding a bank that will not freeze your money. It is finding a payment network that lets you process a simple transaction. So, how does an industry with margins this high actually make people rich? Because this is not a retail business. It is a geographic monopoly, constrained by local law, discriminated against by institutional finance, and banned from modern digital advertising. Now, let's talk about the types of stores you can open. There are three main operational models in this space, and understanding them is how you survive. First, there is the adult bookstore. This is a fading relic from the DVD era. It is usually located in a slightly run-down part of town with faded signage and barred windows. The business model relied on physical video arcades and print media. That model is dying structurally. Fast streaming internet killed the physical media arcade. But these legacy operators hold on to something valuable. They possess grandfathered zoning permits. Grandfathered means they were already operating legally before the city changed the rules, so they get to stay even though nobody new can open. We will get to why those pieces of local paper are gold a little later. Second, you have the modern sexual wellness boutique. This is the current evolution. It looks like an Apple store. Very bright lighting, open, welcoming floor plans. Most of the customers are women or couples. The average order value sits around $90. The staff here are not minimum wage cashiers scanning barcodes. They are trained educators who understand human anatomy. Third, you have the franchise or chain model. Think of corporate entities like Adam & Eve, which operates over 200 locations nationwide, or Hustler Hollywood, which has 59 corporate spots and acquired the Lovers chain back in 2023 to add another 40 locations in a single sweep. If you want to enter this market today as an independent operator, you want to be the second type. But the optimal path to true wealth is taking a modern wellness boutique and placing it inside the grandfathered location of an old adult bookstore. Let's start with the startup costs. This is what it takes to open the doors. First, you need a specialized zoning attorney and an SOB permit hearing. SOB stands for Sexually Oriented Business. That is the legal label cities slap on you to control where you can operate. That process will cost you around $15,000. And here is the brutal catch. You might spend all that money and still get denied by a conservative city council. Next comes the physical build-out of the retail space. To achieve that premium boutique aesthetic, you are looking at $80,000 on average for custom shelving and lighting. Then you need your initial inventory. You do not buy this from a local wholesaler. You buy from national distributors like Eldorado Trading, Williams Trading, or East Coast News. Filling those sleek shelves will cost you approximately $70,000. Then you need your point of sale and strict age verification systems. That specialized hardware and software combo runs about $5,000. Security systems are non-negotiable in this industry. High-definition cameras, panic buttons, and silent alarms will cost you $10,000. Finally, you need a solid working capital reserve. You need 3 to 6 months of operating runway because your cash flow will be erratic early on. That requires about $40,000 sitting in a bank account. Your total startup costs land somewhere between $120,000 and $330,000. But here are the hidden costs nobody tells you about. If your zoning permit gets denied, that $15,000 in legal fees is money wasted. You cannot get a refund. You will also face constant bank account rejections during your initial setup phase. And you have to pay what the industry calls a stigma premium on wages. A stigma premium means you have to pay your retail staff 15% more than the busy coffee shop next door just to convince them to work in an adult retail environment. Not to get rich, just to stay open. Here is how the operating economics break down. Let's follow an average transaction, $65, from the moment a customer taps her credit card at the register. The standard swipe fee for a normal retail store is around 2%. Your card fee is $3.90. That is a 6% high-risk processing rate. Then comes the rolling reserve. The payment processor takes $6.50 and holds it. They keep this money frozen in their accounts for 180 days just in case something goes wrong. The actual product cost is $12. It is a premium medical-grade silicone device manufactured in a factory in Shenzhen, China. Your physical rent allocation per transaction takes $4.50. Your labor allocation takes $3.20. Your insurance and specialized security overhead takes $1.10. On paper, you technically keep $33.80 from that single transaction. And that $6.50 is frozen for 6 full months. You cannot touch it. You cannot use it for weekly payroll. You cannot buy new inventory with it. And then there is the constant chargeback risk. A customer goes home. She looks at her monthly credit card statement a week later. She sees an unrecognized corporate merchant name. She panics. She disputes the charge. You do not just lose the sale. The bank forces a full refund and hits you with a punitive penalty of $50. Now, picture that chargeback happening not once, but 3 times in a single month. Your ratio crosses 1%. Your processor sends you a letter. You have 30 days. Let's look at the product markups driving this engine. Personal wellness devices cost you wholesale anywhere from $5 to $25. They retail between $35 to $150. That is a 60 to 80% margin. Consumable items like premium wellness liquids cost about $5 to procure. They easily retail for around $20. High-quality lingerie items cost you $15. They retail for about $50. And checkout impulse items add a reliable $12 to every single transaction. Here is the marketing trick that makes all of this work. When you run expensive marketing for Valentine's Day, you do not tell the customer to make tonight better. You tell the customer, do not let this Valentine's Day be as boring as last year's. Same product, but you reframed buying it from a nice-to-have into avoiding a painful loss. Behavioral economists call this loss aversion. People feel the pain of losing something about twice as hard as they feel the joy of gaining something equal. When you shift that framing, your conversion rate doubles. Here is where the system works against you in ways that have nothing to do with your product or your customer. Visa and MasterCard classify your store as a high-risk merchant category. That just means they think your industry has too many chargebacks and too much legal gray area. So they charge you more for the privilege of existing. It does not matter how clean your store is. It does not matter how professional your trained staff is. Your processing rates sit at a punishing 6%. Compare that to a normal suburban bookstore that happily pays under 2%. You are forced to use specialized high-risk processors like CC Bill, Payment Cloud, Durango Merchant Services, or Epic. These processors mandate a rolling reserve of 10% held for half a year. And you must pay an annual Visa and MasterCard high-risk registration fee of nearly $1,000 just for the rare privilege of being allowed in their network. Look at the history of Operation Choke Point. From 2013 to 2017, the United States Department of Justice pressured mainstream banks to sever ties with legal adult businesses. Solvent, tax-paying, law-abiding retailers opened their mailboxes and found letters terminating their bank accounts overnight. That is not a scandal. That is a Tuesday. The formal government program ended, but routine, quiet debanking remains a daily existential threat. Your business is legal. Your premium products are made from body-safe medical-grade materials. You pay all your local, state, and federal taxes on time. You employ local people. But Visa can decide tomorrow morning that you are no longer an acceptable merchant category, and your business stops functioning by noon. Then there is the advertising ban. Google Ads will not touch you. Meta will not touch you. The entire digital advertising ecosystem treats you like you do not exist. Every digital ad channel you can think of is closed to you. You must rely on slow, organic search engine optimization. You rely on sheer highway visibility. You rely on quiet, localized word of mouth. You host educational workshops in your store. You partner with niche influencers. Your physical location is your only real billboard. Which brings us directly to the zoning moat. Most cities enforce a strict SOB ordinance. This local law mandates that your physical store must be a strict 1,000 feet away from any school, church, public park, or residential zone. The Supreme Court established this precedent in City of Renton versus Playtime Theaters all the way back in 1986. Cities are legally allowed to restrict your physical location using what they call secondary effects. That means they do not have to prove your store is harmful. They just have to argue that businesses like yours tend to attract more crime or lower nearby property values. That is enough. When you map out the buffer zones in any mid-sized American city, drawing overlapping circles around every school, church, park, and residential block, there are 0 legal parcels of land left to build on. This makes older, grandfathered stores valuable. Getting a brand new permit approved today is nearly mathematically impossible. You are not running a retail store. You are running a permit that nobody else can get. So where does the actual money come from? Let's trace a premium silicone device through the global supply chain. It is manufactured in Shenzhen, China. It is shipped across the ocean in bulk to an El Dorado trading warehouse in New Jersey. It arrives on your illuminated shelf on a Tuesday afternoon. It leaves in a customer's discreet shopping bag on a Friday night for $79. That is a 558% markup. And nobody along that chain loses sleep over it, because the customer who walks into a physical store for this product is not shopping on price. She is paying for discretion, immediacy, and the fact that nobody else needs to know. There are 5 hidden profit engines in this unique business. First, the zoning monopoly premium. Because of that strict SOB buffer law, you legally have no direct competitor within several miles. The local city council built an impenetrable fortress around your cash flow. Second, consumable repurchases. Premium liquids and device cleaners bring your loyal core customers back to the physical store about 6 times a year. Third, the Valentine's Day explosion. The narrow window from February 1st to the 14th makes up roughly 20% of your entire annual revenue. Daily store sales spike 300 to 400% above normal baseline levels. If you normally do $3,000 on a Tuesday, Valentine's week, you are doing 12. Miss that 2-week window? Bad weather, a local road closure, a shipping delay on your pre-ordered inventory, and your annual margin disappears. There is no second Valentine's Day. Fourth, cash transactions. Cash means 0 processing fees. This industry still runs on privacy. When your credit card swipe fees are triple the normal retail rate, cold hard cash is undisputed king. Fifth, loyalty and recurring bases. You use a smart, privacy-first SMS lookup system at the register. You never ask for an email address. You just ask for a phone number. This simple retention tool bumps average order value by a solid 18%. Overall customer retention jumps almost 30%. Now, let's talk about the risks. Here's the part nobody tells you when they pitch this business. None of these risks have anything to do with how well you run the store. First, the looming threat of e-commerce. About 60% of total industry sales are already happening online. Amazon dominates the cheap entry-level market segment. Second, mainstream crossover. Mass retailers like Target, Walmart, and Sephora now sell cheap $20 entry-level devices right in their brightly lit pharmacy aisles. Third, zoning amortization. That means the city gives you a deadline, say 7 years, to shut down and leave, even if you were there first. Hostile city councils use this to force close grandfathered stores through aggressive rezoning tactics. Fourth, getting cut off by your payment processor. Your high-risk processor can legally give you a mere 30 days notice if your monthly chargeback ratio crosses 1%. Fifth, the substantial stigma discount on your final exit. When you finally go to sell your profitable business, your final valuation will be 20% below an equivalent normal retail store. The Small Business Administration will refuse to fund loans for adult retail acquisitions. Look at the sudden structural collapse of the legacy adult bookstores. Back in the 2000s and early 2010s, the rapid technological transition from physical DVDs to high-speed digital streaming killed the video arcades. These physical spaces became obsolete overnight. Thousands of profitable stores turned into hundreds of struggling stores in just 15 short years. Or look again at Operation Choke Point in 2013. The DOJ pressured local community banks across the country. Legal, profitable businesses were cut off from the modern financial system. Operators woke up to find their accounts frozen. You can do everything right, run a clean operation, pay your taxes early, and still lose your essential bank account on a random Thursday afternoon. Let's look at a single store to understand the financial volatility. We will use the same operator, the same highway location, a 2,500 square foot modern wellness boutique. Here is a good year. Valentine's Day overperforms due to great weather. It hits 22% of your annual revenue. Your SMS loyalty base hits 1,200 members. You experience zero chargeback spikes from your main processor. Your total revenue is $1.2 million. Your net profit is $220 grand. Everything I just described requires zero unusual luck, nothing going wrong externally. Now here's what happens when something does. Now here is a bad year. The local city council initiates a hostile amortization hearing against your property. You spend 35 grand in specialized legal fees fighting it. You win the case, but that cash is gone forever. Your primary payment processor demands your chargeback ratio drop below 0.8% immediately. If you fail, they will terminate your account in 30 days. It takes you a brutal, stressful 6 weeks to underwrite and switch to a brand new processor. You are forced to spend 2 agonizing weeks operating as a cash-only business. Meanwhile, the local Target launches a new shelf display of entry-level wellness items. Your sub-$40 foot traffic drops 30%. Your total revenue falls to $680 grand. Your net profit is negative 45 grand. The root cause of this financial loss was not your premium products. It was not your trained staff. It was not your excellent customer service. It was a politically motivated city council, a payment processor's internal risk formula you never get to see, and a mass retailer's category expansion into your space. How do the winners survive this gauntlet? The smart ones rebrand their entire aesthetic as premium wellness to stay below the strict SOB threshold. They ensure adult media remains strictly under 10% of their total floor inventory. Instead of applying for new permits, they acquire existing grandfathered locations from retiring owners. Build redundancy from day one. A smart owner uses CC Bill, Payment Cloud, and a friendly local credit union simultaneously. They never rely on just one single financial institution holding their cash. Educator staff push the average transaction from the industry average of $45 up to $90 or even $120. Corporate retail competitors cannot replicate that kind of personal touch. A subscription model for the consumable stuff, lubricants, cleaners, refills, creates predictable, recurring monthly revenue. Operators go all in on Valentine's Day preparations. Inventory shipments arrive 3 full months in advance. Temporary staff are trained a full month ahead of the chaotic rush. The broader industry is consolidating right now. Corporate giants like Adam and Eve operate over 200 locations. Hustler and Lovers combined forces to control 99 premium stores. The final exit multiples for successful operators remain solid. A single store typically sells for about 2 times what the owner takes home in a year. Multi-store operations can command 3.5 to 5 times annual operating profit. So, after all of that, what does an owner make? For a tightly run, single-store operation, the owner's total take-home, salary plus profits plus perks, ranges from 80 grand to 250 grand a year. For a regional multi-store operation running 5 locations, owners pull down $350,000 to well over $1 million annually. Picture an operator who figured this out early. A smart woman owns a boutique right on Interstate 95. Her location was grandfathered back in 1997. She fought a local city amortization hearing in 2019. It cost her $45,000 in legal fees, but she won the permanent right to stay. Because of the rigid local buffer laws, her nearest legal competitor is positioned 7 miles away. She nets a clean $230,000 every single year. She spends $0 on digital advertising. But there is a stigma discount waiting when she finally tries to sell. The government's small business loan program will not fund the buyer. Buyers need seller financing, meaning she has to let the buyer pay her back over time instead of getting a lump sum, or all cash to close the deal. Passive income does not exist in this sector. Valentine's week alone requires grueling 80-hour work weeks just to manage the sheer volume of chaotic foot traffic. Let's run the final math on this misunderstood industry. We will look at two very different operators. The optimized operator. She acquired a grandfathered location. She did a full premium wellness rebrand. She maintains 3 active payment processors. She built a strong SMS loyalty base. She nets $250,000 with 0 ad spend. The reality operator. He applied for a brand new SOB permit in a fresh zone. The legal process took 14 agonizing months and was denied. He wasted $22,000 on useless zoning lawyers. He found a cheap industrial zone location with 0 highway visibility. His single payment processor cut him off in month 8 without warning. He nets negative $60,000. The huge gap between these two operators is not basic retail skill. It is 3 decisions made long before the first item ever left the warehouse. It is how you acquired the physical location. It is how many banking relationships you secured. And it is whether you exist inside someone else's fragile regulatory rulebook. You are not competing on product. You never were. The products were never the product. The product was a zoning permit that nobody else could get, a payment processor that had not cut you off yet, and a location so scarce that your nearest competitor is prohibited by law from opening next door.